Secrets you didn't notice in Top Gun and what's coming next. What if the biggest dangers in Top Gun weren't in the cockpit? What if they were behind the scenes, in contracts, lawsuit filings, creative fights you never heard about? Prepare to peel back the gloss. Today we'll dig into the shadows behind the dogfights, the truths that almost stayed buried, and sneak a peek at what the future holds for Maverick. Stick around, because some of what I found will probably surprise even die-hard fans. The story of Top Gun began long before the Tom Cruise swagger, long before the highway to the danger zone. It started with Ehud Yone's 1983 article, Top Guns, published in California Magazine, chronicling life at the Navy Fighter Weapons School. That article sold Paramount the rights, but fast forward to 2022, and Yone's heirs claimed they never got credit when Maverick dropped, saying rights had reverted back to them in 2020. In 2024, a judge dismissed their case, ruling that Maverick was not substantially similar in protected creative expression to the article. Facts, themes, and shared settings didn't cut it under copyright law. But even before any lawsuits, real tragedy shadowed the set. Art Scholl, famed aerobatic pilot and aerial cinematographer, died during filming for Top Gun. His final flight plunged into the Pacific after a camera plane spin went wrong. No recovery of the aircraft or his body. This wasn't just Hollywood danger. It was a real loss and a reminder that every shot of spinning jets in the sky carried risk. The credits say, this film is dedicated to the memory of Art Scholl. Modern times have brought new stakes. After Maverick, talk of Top Gun 3 got loud. Director Joseph Kosinski and writer Aaron Kruger are reported to be working on it. Kosinski has teased that this next installment won't just be more of the same. He says Maverick is heading into something personal, existential, an arc that questions who he is in the face of changing skies. Christopher McQuarrie, who helped with Maverick, said the story for Top Gun 3 wasn't hard to figure out. It's already in the bag. Meanwhile, actors are preparing in physical ways. Miles Teller jokes he told Cruise, "Give me 6 months heads up so I can get my abs back." 1 month per ab, he said. There's no solid production schedule yet, but whispers are shooting around that filming could begin in 2025, with hopes for a 2026 to 2028 release window. Back to the original Top Gun, many of the myths and legends around it have kernels of truth. The Navy had script approval, especially to keep the military looking heroic. Scenes that might have hinted at pilot error or recklessness were edited or changed. Some elements were required to maintain image. The aircraft used, real F-14s, real carrier landings, real flight hours, meant real danger, real cost. The Navy didn't sign off on everything. There were drafts rewritten at their insistence. On the financial front, Maverick confirmed what the original already suggested. Military cooperation in filmmaking can become deeply entwined with soft power and image building. The support from the U.S. Navy didn't just help with practicality, it helped with promotional reach. Some critics saw Top Gun, Maverick, as having propaganda elements, especially since military recruitment saw increases, and because the Department of Defense had a say in how things looked on screen. There were critics at the beginning who dismissed Top Gun as adrenaline with little substance. The New York Times, Roger Ebert, they griped about style overtaking depth. But audience reaction told another story. A cultural phenomenon was born. The original film lodged itself into the American mind, influencing fashion, aviators, bomber jackets, macho tropes, and even recruitment numbers. Maverick amplified that, becoming one of Cruise's biggest box office hits ever. And now, as Top Gun 3 looms, one of the most interesting tensions will be, how do you honor all that height, all that noise, all the legacy, but still surprise people? Maverick's character is older. The world is different. Drones, AI, geopolitical uncertainty. Kosinski says the scale will be bigger, story deeper, that Maverick may be confronting literal and metaphorical wings that are too heavy. They nearly cast a completely different Maverick. Before Tom Cruise locked in the role, producers considered many rising stars. Names like Patrick Swayze, Emilio Estevez, John Cusack, Matthew Broderick, Nicolas Cage, even Michael J. Fox were all floated. In the end, Tom Cruise got the part, partly because of his ambition, partly because he was willing to push for the adrenaline, the risks, and the stunts that others might have balked at. Budget was modest, just about $15 million, yet the filmmakers squeezed an insane amount out of every dollar. They had to coordinate with the U.S. Navy for access to real F-14S aircraft carriers and naval pilots. For many aerial shots, they couldn't use green screen. They mounted cameras on jets, had multiple external camera rigs, and flew real dogfights. The cost of fuel alone for F-14S was a constant drain. They had to pay hefty fees whenever Navy aircraft were used outside their normal training flights. For a film so high-octane, the Navy played a surprisingly hands-on and controlling role. Several early drafts of the script were rejected or heavily altered so that the Navy wouldn't look reckless or incompetent. Goose's death, for example, was modified to shift blame to mechanical failure rather than pilot error. Also, the opening dogfight was originally scripted to happen over Cuban airspace, but the Navy and producers opted to move it to international waters to avoid diplomatic or political backlash. The production didn't just lean into aerial spectacle, it also had to handle tricky human logistics. For instance, Kelly McGillis and Tom Cruise had to be made to look more similar in height in many scenes. Camera angles, platforms, sometimes McGillis shoeless, Cruise on apple boxes, etc. Also, they had to hide changes, like when McGillis's hair color or look changed during reshoots. Certain scenes were reshot later, which forced continuity fixes. Some of the film's most dramatic aerial footage came from dangerous real-life stunts. The cameras mounted on the F-14S and external mounts would endure high G-forces, extreme vibrations, risky maneuvers, and the death of stunt pilot Art Scholl, while filming a flat spin sequence, haunted the production. He radioed in that he had a real problem during a spin, then the aircraft was never recovered. The film opens with a dedication to his memory. Despite fierce criticism at first, Top Gun found its audience fast. Critics were mixed, styles over substance, flashy visuals over character depth. But audiences turned up in droves. The film made hundreds of millions worldwide against that small budget, and over time, its visual style, its soundtrack, Danger Zone, Take My Breath Away, its masculine bravado, and its aerial spectacle turned it into a cult classic. Home video, VHS, and soundtrack sales all exploded. Here's the bonus truth few people talk about. Top Gun, in its original and sequel forms, isn't just entertainment. It's part of how media, military, and myth collide. That court fight over credit for Yone's article reveals something deeper. Whose stories get told, who gets credited, what parts of history are transformed into spectacle. When a film becomes a symbol for power, identity, and image, the behind-the-scenes fights are just as meaningful as the dogfights. And Top Gun 3 may well push us to ask, when does fiction become narrative strategy? So, when Top Gun 3 finally lifts off, listen not just for the roar of engines, but for the whispers off stage. Who's shaping the story now? What truths will be kept? What myths will be doubled down on? Between the pilot's salute and the final flyby, there's always more going on than the audience sees. If you're still watching, drop a comment. Which of today's secrets surprised you the most? Was it the Scholl story, the lawsuit, the way the next movie is already being built emotionally? Hit like, subscribe, and share if you want more deep dives like this. And remember, sometimes the most powerful parts of a story are what nearly didn't make it out of the editing bay.